Hi again, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com, and it's time for another episode of Ask the Lawyer. Childbirth should be a time of great joy for a new family, but unfortunately, sometimes that joy can turn to sorrow when things go wrong during delivery. Well, today we're going to ask the lawyer about operative deliveries and their potential complications. And here to answer our questions today is attorney Lyle Warshauer of the Warshauer Law Group in Atlanta. Lyle, thank you for making some time for us today. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Let's start with a definition. What is an operative delivery?
Well, there are several types of operative deliveries, and the main one is a cesarean section delivery. And I think we're not going to focus on that quite as much today, but talk about what we call operative vaginal deliveries. And that's where there's some kind of a device used to assist the mom in the pushing stage to get the baby out in the old-fashioned way, when for a variety of reasons it's difficult for mom to do it on her own.
Now, we've heard a lot about cesarean section, but I didn't realize that the other was still a common. Is it a common procedure? How often do these kind of things happen?
Well, like a lot of things in medicine, there have been sort of trends for using devices, and what we'll be talking about are vacuum-assisted deliveries and forceps deliveries. So really, there are not a lot of deliveries that utilize those devices. As much as a third of deliveries are done by cesarean, and somewhere between 3 to 5% utilize the other types of devices. But there's often sort of a trend to get away from cesarean deliveries. And when that happens, there's sort of an uptick in using the other types of operative delivery devices. So we're kind of in a stage where we're seeing more of them. In about 2015, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists actually sanctioned the use of these devices again. So we're seeing some more of them, but there's a lot of cautionary tales involved as well.
All right, well, let's talk about that, because I assume since there's so few of them, that they're so uncommon, that must mean they come with some sort of inherent risk. Is that the case?
It is, and it's sort of, you can kind of see how this might be, because when you think about how these devices are used. So if we're talking about forceps, basically just a little bit background of what that is. The forceps is sort of like an oversized salad tongue on either side of the baby's head, slid in on each side. And when the mom is pushing, you just assist in that pushing process with these tongues, if you will. Mm-hmm. So you can see if someone is not familiar with the device or uses too much pressure, or if there's some underlying condition with the baby that might make it dangerous for the baby to be pressed in that way, you can have injuries to the baby's head. There are also, perhaps surprisingly, greater injury to mom when you use forceps. The other type of device is a vacuum device, and that's just a little suction cup that's put on top of the baby's head, and then that is used to help assist the baby out. If the baby has any kind of underlying condition that might lead to bleeding, or if, for example, a scalp electrode had been placed on the baby's head previously, can increase the likelihood of bleeding for the baby. That can be external, or if the baby is susceptible to intracranial hemorrhage, this can lead to that kind of damage as well. So the injuries can be pretty severe when they do happen.
And you mentioned that the forceps can be dangerous to the mother. Is the vacuum extraction, does that also pose dangers for the mother?
Well, there's some studies that say both types of devices can increase the likelihood that the mom has a perineal injury, or increase the need for an episiotomy, which can create injury to mom in terms of a fistula or injury to the vagina or the rectum. Those injuries can happen without the use of the device, but the incidence is greater with the use of the devices.
Now, do the doctors have to get permission from the mother before they use these procedures, and does that vary by state?
Absolutely. It does not vary by state. It is an industry standard that there needs to be consent for the use of these procedures. And it's also important to note that when operative vaginal delivery is contemplated, it is not contemplated prior to beginning of labor. But the consent should probably be obtained prior to labor, because when you're starting to contemplate the use of an operative device, it's because either mom is completely exhausted, this has been going on too long, or it could be because there's something going on with the baby's in distress, and there's a need to get the baby out, to move the things along. So you don't want to be getting consent during a time of stress, but the consent must be obtained, and it must be obtained giving the risks and the benefits. And if that does not occur, then it's inappropriate to proceed in that fashion.
Okay, and what if they have not obtained the consent ahead of time? It would also seem like if the mother is under some sort of influence of medication, that might be a problem. Would they then turn to someone else, a next of kin, for consent?
Well, I think it would be similar to, I'm guessing here a little bit, but I would think if mom was in a situation where she was not able to give consent, it would be inappropriate to use that type of device, because again, it is something that is used to assist the process. It is not to be done, as a cesarean is. Obviously, you are anesthetized, and it's an actual surgery where you open mom up and you get the baby out that way. So mom's not involved in that. If mom's not able to participate, I would believe that would be a contraindication for using the device.
How can someone know whether injuries are because of medical malpractice with these procedures, or just a bad outcome and nothing could have been done? How can you know?
Well, initially you might not be able to know, but you would have to start with an injury. So if there's an injury that you wouldn't expect through a normal delivery process, for example, if you see, a large hematoma at the top of the baby's head, that doesn't happen just by getting out of the birth canal naturally. So maybe it was somebody placing the vacuum on a baby who's premature, shouldn't do it that way. Maybe it was placed on too many times, too many efforts were made. We call them pop-offs. The cup keeps coming off, and so that repeated suction. But the long and the short of it is that you would have some kind of injury, and then you would have to look back and see what was done during the course of the labor and the delivery. Like in any potential malpractice situation, you would look at the record and you would see what was the indication? Was there a legitimate indication for doing it? Were there any contraindications for doing it? Was the baby not in the right position? Was too much force used? Those type of things. So you have to match up the indications, the contraindications, with what actually happened in the case to determine if the injury was the result of poor process in the delivery.
And that's the sort of thing that parents can't do on their own. That's when they need an attorney on their side to do that sort of thing for them, correct?
Absolutely. So I always tell people the first thing you want to do, whether it's your own injury or certainly the injury of your child, is you want to make sure that that is addressed first, and that proper care is taken to remedy the situation. Because a lot of these, particularly with the little ones, the injury needs to be responded to immediately, or the long-term consequences can be worse. So address that first, but then obtain the records and get an experienced attorney with the help of medical providers to give opinions, to look at the records and to see if everything was done appropriately. Many times it's just something that needs to be explained, but many times there are errors that were made, and an attorney needs to help you with that.
And I would imagine, even if what you're hearing from the medical professionals or the hospital or whatever is that everything went as best it could, it still might be, if you suspect something's not right, you still should contact an attorney.
Absolutely. And that's in your right. And that's expected for everybody to try to reassure you that everything went well. But often that is not the case. And an attorney can help you find that out.
Great. Lyle, thank you so much for helping us answer our questions. Not an easy topic to talk about, but an important one. Thank you so much for helping us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been attorney Lyle Warshauer of the Warshauer Law Group in Atlanta. If you want the best information about birth injuries, or you're ready to choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, make sure to visit our website, askthelawyer.com. Also, take a second and click on the button at the bottom of the screen. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com.